Ireland is one of the richest countries on Earth. At least, that is what the numbers say. This small island, once known for poverty, immigration, and people leaving in search of a better life, now appears richer than some of the most powerful nations in the world. But there is something strange about Ireland's wealth. Because when people look beyond the rankings, beyond the GDP, and beyond the glass towers of Dublin, they find a question that does not go away. If Ireland is really this rich, why does the country still feel so expensive, so pressured, and so difficult for many ordinary people? The answer is hidden inside one of the most misleading numbers in the modern economy: GDP. Ireland did not simply become rich. It became the place where global wealth passes through. And once you understand that, the story of Ireland changes completely. From a distance, Ireland looks peaceful. Green fields stretch toward the sea. Old stone walls cut across the countryside. Small villages sit under gray skies. In Dublin, people walk past historic buildings, modern offices, cafes, bridges, and glass towers that reflect the river. At first glance, Ireland feels calm, modest, and familiar. But behind that calm image, there is a mystery. How can a country with a small population, a difficult past, and a long history of emigration appear so unbelievably rich? For generations, Ireland was not known as a land of extreme wealth. It was known for struggle, departure, survival, and resilience. Millions of people left the island to search for better lives elsewhere. Families carried stories of hardship, hunger, and hope across oceans. Yet today, Ireland can look like an economic superstar. The contrast is almost too sharp to ignore. A country once shaped by people leaving now attracts some of the biggest companies in the world. A country once seen as poor now appears rich beyond belief. But the question remains: is Ireland truly as rich as it looks? Or is something unusual happening behind the statistics? Before this story continues, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and write in the comments where you are watching from. Quietly Rich follows the hidden wealth stories of the world's most fascinating countries, and Ireland may be one of the strangest of all. Because the secret of Ireland is not only about money, it is about how money is counted. And once that is understood, the whole island starts to look different. To understand Ireland's strange wealth, the story cannot begin with technology parks or global corporations. It has to begin with memory. For a long time, Ireland was not the kind of country people associated with economic success. Its image was built on green landscapes, old traditions, music, faith, family, and deep cultural identity. But behind that beauty, there was also pain. Many Irish families knew what it meant to struggle. They knew what it meant to leave home. They knew what it meant to send sons, daughters, brothers, and sisters away. Not because they wanted to go, but because staying offered too little. Emigration became part of the Irish story. People left for America, Britain, Australia, Canada, and many other places. They took their names, accents, songs, and memories with them. Around the world, the Irish became a global people. But back home, the island carried a quiet question. Could Ireland ever become a place people came to, instead of a place people left? For decades, the answer was uncertain. The country had talent. It had location. It had culture. It had an English-speaking population beside Europe. But it did not yet have the economic machine that could transform those advantages into global power. Then, slowly, the direction began to change. Ireland invested in education. It opened itself to international business. It joined deeper European markets. It presented itself not as a giant country, but as a smart gateway. And this was the beginning of a new identity. Ireland would not become rich by copying the largest countries. It would become rich by becoming useful to them. That was the quiet shift. The island that once exported people began to import opportunity. And soon, the world's biggest companies started looking at Ireland not as a small island on the edge of Europe, but as a doorway. Ireland did not have to become the biggest country in Europe. It only had to become one of the most useful. That was the strategic idea hiding under its transformation. Ireland had something powerful, Access. It was English-speaking, connected to Europe, politically stable and eager to welcome international companies. For global corporations, especially from the United States, Ireland began to look like a bridge. A company could arrive in Ireland and find a skilled workforce. It could operate inside the European market. It could use English. It could build offices, research centers, service hubs, and regional headquarters. This was not an accident. Ireland made itself attractive. It built an environment where companies could feel safe, welcomed, and understood. It offered a business culture that felt familiar to the English-speaking world, while still being inside the European economic space. And little by little, the names arrived. Technology companies, pharmaceutical companies, finance companies, global service companies. Firms whose products, apps, medicines, platforms, and systems touched millions of people around the world. Suddenly, Ireland was no longer only a country of poets, musicians, farms, pubs, and old castles. It was becoming a home for global business. Dublin changed. Office buildings rose. Talent moved in. International workers arrived. Local workers found new opportunities. Universities connected with growing industries. The country's image began to shift from quiet island to modern economy. To many people watching from outside, it looked like a miracle. But it was not magic. Ireland had chosen a role. It became a place where global companies could organize part of their world. And that role made the numbers grow fast, very fast, maybe too fast. Because when the largest companies on Earth begin placing parts of their business inside a small country, the statistics can start telling a story that feels bigger than the country itself. And that is exactly what happened. As the years passed, Ireland's transformation became harder to ignore. The country that once watched so many people leave was now attracting people, capital, offices, and attention. Its cities became more international. Its economy became more connected. Its reputation changed. People began to speak of the Irish economic miracle. The phrase sounded beautiful. It suggested a nation that had risen from difficulty and found its place in the modern world. And in many ways, that was true. Ireland really did change. It created jobs. It modernized. It connected itself to global industries. It became far more prosperous than it had been in the past. But the more impressive the numbers became, the more unusual the story felt. Ireland's economy appeared to jump in ways that did not look normal for a small country. Its output could seem enormous. Its income rankings could place it near the very top of the world. On paper, it looked like one of the richest places human beings had ever built. And that raised a strange feeling. If Ireland was so rich, why did the country still feel so ordinary in some places? Why did a small island with fewer people than many major world cities appear richer than giant economies with vast industries? Why did the numbers look almost too perfect? This is where the story becomes more than a tale of success. It becomes a puzzle, because Ireland's rise was real, but it was also unusual. The country had truly benefited from smart positioning, international investment, and global companies. But some of the wealth appearing in the statistics was not the same as money flowing directly into ordinary Irish households. The miracle had two layers. The first layer was real progress. The second layer was statistical distortion. And for anyone trying to understand Ireland, confusing those two layers changes everything, because the secret was not hidden in the countryside. It was hidden inside one number: GDP. GDP is supposed to help people understand the size of an economy. It adds up the value of goods and services produced inside a country. In most places, it gives a useful picture. Not perfect, but useful. In Ireland, however, GDP became something strange. Because so many multinational companies operate through Ireland, some of the value connected to those companies appears inside Irish economic statistics. These companies may sell products around the world. They may own intellectual property. They may record profits, assets, exports, or activities in ways that make Ireland's economy look much larger than the everyday domestic economy feels. This does not mean Ireland is fake. It means Ireland is complicated. Imagine a small harbor town where enormous ships pass through every day. The harbor becomes important. It earns money. It creates jobs. It becomes globally connected. but the value of everything moving through the harbor may be far larger than the life of the town itself. Ireland became something like that, but for modern global business. Money, intellectual property, corporate structures, exports, tax planning, and multinational activity moved through the Irish economy in ways that made the headline numbers explode. To people outside the country, the result looked shocking. Ireland seemed richer and richer, but economists, officials, and careful observers began asking a deeper question. What part of this number reflects the real Irish economy, and what part reflects the global movements of corporations using Ireland as a base? That question became so important that Ireland began using special measures to better understand its own economy. One of them is called Modified Gross National Income, often known as GNI*. This measure tries to remove some of the global distortions and give a clearer picture of the Irish economy beneath the multinational effect. And when that clearer picture appears, the story changes. Ireland is still successful, but it is not quite the fantasy that GDP alone seems to show. Most countries do not need to explain why their wealth looks too large. Ireland did. That alone shows how unusual this story is. The country became so affected by multinational activity that traditional GDP was no longer enough to explain what was happening. The headline number was not useless, but it was incomplete. It mixed the local economy with the movements of some of the world's largest corporations. So Ireland needed a cleaner way to look at itself. Modified GNI became one of the answers. It was designed to remove some effects that make the Irish economy look larger than what ordinary national income would suggest. In simple terms, it tries to answer a practical question. How much of this wealth is really connected to Ireland's own economic life? That question matters. Because when a country appears extremely rich, people make assumptions. They assume the government has endless money. They assume citizens are living in extraordinary comfort. They assume public services, housing, transport, wages, and quality of life must all match the global ranking. But Ireland shows why those assumptions can be dangerous. A country can be rich in official statistics and still face pressure in daily life. A country can host giant companies and still struggle with housing shortages. A country can collect large tax revenues and still worry about relying too much on a small number of multinational sources. This is the heart of Ireland's hidden truth. Its wealth is real, but part of the image is magnified. Like looking through a curved piece of glass, the object exists, but its size can appear different depending on the angle. Ireland did not become rich by accident. It became rich by becoming strategically important. But the same strategy that brought wealth also made the numbers harder to trust at first glance. And then the story moves from charts to streets. Because the real test of wealth is not only what appears in a spreadsheet, it is what people feel when they try to live. In Dublin, the contrast can be seen almost by walking. One street may show the modern Ireland, office lights, international workers, global companies, cafes full of laptops, and buildings connected to industries that reach across the planet. Another street may show a different reality, people worried about rent, young adults wondering if they can afford to stay near the city, families searching for homes, and workers asking why a rich country feels so expensive. This is not a simple story of success or failure. It is a story of pressure. When a small country becomes a major hub for global companies, demand rises. More workers arrive, more offices open, more money moves through the system. But housing does not always grow fast enough. Infrastructure does not always keep pace. Wages may rise in some sectors while prices rise for almost everyone. For ordinary people, the question becomes personal. If Ireland is so rich, why is housing so hard? If the economy is so powerful, why does life feel squeezed? If the country appears near the top of global wealth rankings, why do some citizens feel locked out of that success? These questions do not erase Ireland's achievements, they reveal their cost. A successful economy can create opportunities and pressure at the same time. It can bring jobs, investment, and tax revenue, while also making cities more expensive and daily life more stressful. That is what makes Ireland such a powerful story. The country did not fail. It succeeded in a way that created new problems. And those problems are not hidden in old ruins or distant villages. They are visible in rent prices, long commutes, crowded markets, and the quiet anxiety of people trying to build a future in a country that looks wealthy from the outside. The numbers say Ireland is rich. The streets ask a harder question. Rich for whom? Behind every national ranking, there are ordinary lives. A student looking for a place to rent. A nurse traveling farther from home because the city is too expensive. A young couple wondering if buying a house is still possible. A worker in a strong economy who still feels that the future is moving away faster than their income can follow. This is where Ireland's story becomes emotional. Because the country's success is not imaginary. Many people have benefited. Jobs were created. Education improved. International opportunity expanded. Ireland became more confident, more connected, and more visible in the world. But the feeling of national wealth does not reach everyone in the same way. Some people see the boom from inside glass buildings. Others see it from the outside while trying to manage rising costs. Some benefit directly from multinational jobs. Others live in communities where the national numbers feel distant. Some experience Ireland as a country of opportunity. Others experience it as a country that has become too expensive to fully enter. That tension gives the story its human weight. Ireland is not simply a rich country with a secret. It is a country trying to understand what kind of richness it has built. Is wealth only a number that impresses the world? Is it a tax receipt? Is it a corporate headquarters? Is it a high ranking? Or is it the ability of ordinary families to live with security, dignity, and hope? The answer is not easy, but the question is necessary. Ireland's economic model brought the world to its door. Now the challenge is making sure the people inside the country do not feel like strangers in their own success. And this is why the final truth matters. Ireland is not a lie. It is also not as simple as the rankings suggest. The real story is smarter, stranger, and more revealing. At this point, it would be easy to say Ireland's wealth is fake. But that would be wrong. Ireland is not a fake rich country. It is a country whose richness must be understood carefully. The mistake is not believing Ireland became successful. The mistake is believing the headline numbers tell the whole story. Ireland did something extremely intelligent. It looked at its size, location, language, and place in Europe, and turned those things into an economic strategy. It did not need to control the world. It needed to become useful to the world. And it did. For global companies, Ireland became a base. For investors, it became a stable environment. For workers, it became a land of opportunity. For Europe, it became a bridge to international business. For the United States and other global players, it became a familiar doorway into a massive market. That is not an accident. That is positioning. But every strategy has consequences. By attracting huge multinational activity, Ireland also made its economy harder to read. GDP became inflated by forces that did not always reflect the daily life of the people. Tax income became powerful, but also dependent on companies whose decisions could change. Cities gained energy, but housing became more pressured. So the true story of Ireland is not, this country is secretly fake. The true story is, this country became a platform for global wealth and then had to learn how to separate the platform from the people living on it. That is the real secret. Ireland's wealth is not only in what it produces, it is in where it sits. It is in what it connects. It is in the role it plays between companies, markets, laws, talent, and opportunity. The island became a meeting point for global money, and that made it look enormous. Ireland's story ends with a surprising kind of clarity. The country is rich, but not always in the way people imagine. It is not a giant industrial empire. It is not a vast land full of endless natural resources. It is not a country whose wealth can be understood only by looking at farms, factories, or local streets. Ireland became rich by becoming a strategic place in the global economy. It turned language into an advantage. It turned location into a bridge. It turned membership in Europe into access. It turned business policy into attraction. It turned smallness into focus. And that is why the Irish story feels so unusual. The same island that once watched generations leave in search of opportunity became a country where opportunity arrived from around the world. But the lesson is not that numbers are meaningless. The lesson is that numbers need interpretation. GDP showed one Ireland. Spectacular, almost unbelievable, and richer than expected. Daily life showed another Ireland. Successful but pressured, expensive, and still trying to make prosperity feel real for more people. The truth is found between them. Ireland is not poor pretending to be rich, and it is not a perfect paradise overflowing with easy wealth. It is a small country that made one of the smartest economic moves of the modern era. It became the place where global wealth could pass through, settle, and grow. That made the world look at Ireland differently, but it also forced Ireland to look at itself more carefully. And perhaps that is the most powerful part of the story. The real Irish miracle is not that the country became rich overnight. The real miracle is that a small island on the edge of Europe learned how to make the world need it. And once that happened, Ireland no longer had to chase the global economy. The global economy came to Ireland.